Hi, I'm Lucia from Marathon Mates. And on this episode of The Flying Runner, we are following up on our discussion about women's running from episode number 87. And the responses we've had from the episode have been very encouraging. So on this episode, we will continue to talk about the challenges and issues that women face when it comes to running, whether you're a new runner and unsure of what to do, or you are running post-pregnancy and are just looking for tips and tricks to help you back up and on the go again. We've got you covered. We've got the experience and the knowledge, as we are the only podcast with 4 6-star world major marathon co-hosts. And this is the Flying Runr Podcast. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying Runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to Flying Runner. I'm Lucia from Marathon Mates, and this is episode 102. On tonight's episode, we'll be talking about the issues and concerns that women have when it comes to running. As our regular listeners would know, we unfortunately ran out of time during episode 87 to answer all the common questions women have when it comes to running. So we will continue that discussion on tonight's episode and share our knowledge. But just before we do any of that, let me introduce my lovely marathon mates. So first of all, we have Team Ellis, Tara, and Tim, and we have Tony. Welcome, guys. But more importantly, how's your week been? I'm going to start off with Tony this time.
Yeah, what a week. It was cold. It was cold, and I really didn't get out much at all during the week. I went for, I think, 2 runs. That was about it. On the weekend, I went out with full intention to get a 30K done. And I didn't get there, but I got close enough. So I was happy with that. I got 20K done. And then the next day I fronted back up and I did another 9 just to get used to that concept of running on sore legs, Lucia. I took a lot away from your tip last week, the difference between soreness and pain. And I said, I've just got to, it's not pain, Tony, it's soreness. So I've got to run through. So, yeah, about 30K overall over the weekend. So I was relatively happy with that. But as I said last week, I just feel a little underdone coming into Gold Coast. But, I'll get it done.
And Team Ellis?
Tim?
Well, okay. I'm the same as Tony. We have had winter hit us here in Queensland, and Lucia, it's probably a little bit different in Sydney for you, but in Brisbane, we go from a nice warm summer to all of a sudden in 24 hours it goes cold. And last week we hit that 24-hour period where it just changed from hot to cold. And when I say cold, it's single digits here in Brisbane. So getting up out in the morning to go for a run in the dark, in the cold, it's not appealing. So lying in bed is the best option. And I use recovery and all the other things, listening to my body and all those things. But didn't do any midweek running this week, but I did do park run with Tara at Mitchelton on Saturday. And then we backed it up the next day and did 25 at our happy place out at Shorncliffe. So, yeah, really, Tara, as we keep saying, we're trying to train you up to focus on heart rate more so than pace at the moment.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part for me is because I've always run to a pace and kept it there, it's really weird for me to try and run to a heart rate. So Tim set up an alarm on my watch. So every time I go over a certain amount of heart rate, which is what my pacemaker's set to be the maximum at, it yells at me. So sometimes I can be walking and that happens just because my heart's still adjusting to how this pacing's happening. So I am very, very slow, but I'm happy with that. The fact that I'm actually still able to get out there and do something. So yeah, it's all good.
So I had a weekend in Melbourne. So the plan was to do 30 Ks, which included a couple of laps around Albert Park. Beautiful area to run Albert Park, absolutely beautiful. And for the listeners that listen regularly, know that I do run walk intervals. So I was testing out some run walk intervals for Goldie Half, and what should have been a 30-second recovery, at this point I was at about the 26.5K mark. My phone's not beep, like my watch isn't beeping. I'm like, something's wrong. I hadn't adjusted my last interval from 3 minutes to 30 seconds. So it had me walking for 3 minutes. So at that point, I'd reached 27. I'm like, bugger it, I'm done. I called it, but I was walking for the rest of the day. And then I just did a short run yesterday in Melbourne. So it was a confidence booster I needed from last week's one, in which I felt defeated on last week's run. So it was the confidence booster I needed. So very happy. Not where I want to be for Goldie, but I'll get it done. It won't be pretty, but I'm going to get it done. Just before we move on to everyone's favourite part, we got some listener feedback over the weekend, and proud to say that the Flying Runr Podcast is an enabler in a good way. So a very good friend of the podcast, Victoria, she did have a registration for Goldie, but a while ago she thought, no, I won't do it. But after listening to the podcast on her Saturday run, she's booked flights and hotel, and she's doing the half. So we inspired her to do the half. So thank you very much, Victoria, for the feedback. Also got some feedback from a friend, Meg, who enjoys listening, and also Peter, who we mentioned on the podcast last week. She also enjoyed our episode of the GC. So very much looking forward to seeing those guys on the GC soon. Now, Tim, our favourite part of the podcast, what's been happening around the world this week?
Thanks, Lucia. A couple of newsworthy articles that I came across. The first one is around the financial impacts of World Marathon Majors. And for anyone who's questioning why cities like Sydney are chasing in marathons like a World Marathon Major event so hard, I can tell you why. A recent study has revealed that the 2024 Bank of America Chicago Marathon boosted the Chicago metropolitan area economy by $683 million last year. So, Tara, that was you and me doing an awful lot of drinking in that time. That equates to a 22% increase in total economic impact compared to 2023. So when they talk about economic impact, they're talking about money spent in restaurants, hotels, merchandise, shopping, cafes, restaurants, all those sorts of things, boosting up the economy. The president and CEO of Choose Chicago, which is their tourist organization, said the Chicago Marathon is one of our most important events to boost tourism and showcase the city. Now, I saw this, and I don't know how true it is, but it was in the article, and I can't find anything further about it, but it says the race itself supported 4,589 full-time jobs in 2024, which is a 24% increase from 2023. So I don't know if they're taking into account just the race people who are involved in the race, which I don't think so. I think it also includes all those who are working in hotels, working in the food industries and all that sort of stuff. But they say they are amazed by the people who come in and impact Chicago and have a positive impact on the economy. So $683 million, as I said, totally awesome. And you can see why cities like Sydney want to be part of the World Marathon Major experience, I guess. And you just imagine, we've talked previously about the economic impact over the next 3 or 4 years in Sydney. In 5, 6, 7 years, once it's a really well-established world major, it could be getting numbers like that regularly every year, boosting the Sydney economy, which would just be huge, wouldn't it?
Massive.
Yeah. Crazy numbers. All right, now this is another one. I know, Tony, you get interested in this one. I do as well. The US Olympic marathon trials, not trails. You know what happens? We've talked about it in the past. Whenever there's an Olympics, the US like to do their own thing when it comes to selecting marathon runners. They host a separate US Olympic marathon trial event. In 2024 for the Paris Olympics, it was held in Atlanta, I believe it was. And this week, they've announced that they're going to continue to host an Olympic marathon trial race. So it wasn't so successful in Atlanta. They've done it a number of times. I think it's successful in that they can get all the athletes together in one race. They can do that, but it's not necessarily successful for the economy and for the cities that are hosting it. But what they have announced, though, is that the next Olympic standard to qualify to run in the trials, that the standards have been set for men, which are now 2 hours and 16 minutes. So you have to run 2 hours 16 to be able to qualify for the event, or run a 1 hour and 3 minute half marathon. And if you're a woman, it's run a 2 hour 37 marathon qualifier, or run a 1 hour 12 minute half marathon. The standard for the men's is about 2 minutes quicker than it was at the recent trials last year. And it's important to note that this is chip time, not gun time. So it's good for the women who are typically at the back of the elite fields, or typically running in amongst men, that they may not always be exposed to the gun times in an event. So it's good in that sense. But as we've talked about in the past, it's always a problem, always difficult when you're trying to get all the athletes to be at peak for the one weekend. And it seems like I would hate to be an athlete in that, because you're putting all your eggs on one event to qualify for the Olympics. You have to be up, you have to be on pace, you have to be feeling good on the day, and that makes it difficult. If we're looking at those metrics, the times I just said, about 139 people or runners from the 220 that qualified last time would make the cut for 2028. So there's a bit of work for runners to do to keep qualifying. There's 3 years to go, and there's still no news yet on the trials and where they're going to be hosted. So, Tony, I know this is one that you usually get excited by. I get excited watching it, but it's a tough gig, hey?
It is. In 2024, it wasn't Atlanta. It was held in Orlando. And the heat was a real factor. So very, very interesting. I just find it intriguing the way the Americans do it with the trials, and all the influencers get behind it and make a weekend of it, and, you know, all the brands get behind it. But, yeah, I find it really amazing, to be honest. And as you're saying, everyone's got a peak on the same weekend and then turn around and be ready for the Olympics. So I think it was February 2024 that the trials were held.
I think so.
And you know, when was that's like 4 or 5 months away. Yeah. From Paris. So it's a big ask, but it's the way they do it, and it's what they celebrate. So.
That's it. All right, and the last little bit of news. I love this name of a marathon. It's the Grandma's Marathon. It is in Duluth, Minnesota, and it is on this weekend. Actually, on the weekend when we release this podcast. So most of the runners are starting to get there and get themselves ready for the event, but there is some concerns around the air quality in the region at the moment. Unfortunately, there are some Canadian wildfires just on the other side of the border there, which is creating havoc with the air quality in the region. This is particularly a worry for those runners who suffer from asthma, COPD, and other respiratory problems, which is going to lead to things like wheezing, lungs, and all sorts of other issues that runners don't like to have. It doesn't sound any way appealing, and so I guess everyone is out there praying that they get clear air for this weekend. They haven't said whether they will cancel it if the air quality is not right, but either way, it doesn't sound like very much fun And definitely our thoughts are with everyone who is competing in the Grand Mars Marathon, which is an awesome sounding name. I love it. And guys, that's it. That's the news this week.
Excellent. Thanks, Tim.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
And Tony, yes, I got through it quickly tonight.
It was, you started when the time was 8 minutes and you finished with the time at 16 minutes. So yes, you did get through it quickly.
Well done, Tim. Thank you, Tim, as well. So now it's that time where the guys, you can go a little quiet for a change, but please feel free to jump in if you like. And us girls are going to take over and get chatting. So as we said earlier on, we're talking tonight about all things women need to know when it comes to running. So as always, I'll ask some questions and then Tara will answer and I'll add in as well. So first one, Tara, and can strength training improve my running, and what training should I be focusing on as a woman?
Excellent. So that's a really good question, actually, Lucia. So as a runner, we all know that strength training is a very crucial part of our training plan, and that enhances our performance, it prevents injuries, it improves our overall running economy. So we like to focus on exercises that build lower body strength. We'll do some core, and some upper body strength. So things like squats, lunges, deadlifts, planks, and upper body exercises like rows and presses are very, very good for that. Consider also incorporating things like plyometrics into your regime. So things like jump squats, they build the power that you need for pushing forward. And if you aim for 2 to 3 strength training sessions per week, that is pretty good for when you're on marathon training, and you just adjust that intensity and frequency based on your training schedule and experience. I personally like to do things like walkouts, mountain climbers, reverse lunges, squats, glute bridges, leg raises, bear crawls, supermans. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. So yep.
And something I should have said at the start. This is just our recommendations, listeners. We if you do want to start doing it, building up your running and your strength, definitely see a fitness professional. This is just our knowledge and our advice. Next one, how much rest do you really need in terms of rest days between strength and running?
Absolutely. So this is important not just for females, but also for males. Females, obviously, we've got different hormones to males, and we will need different rest days, and that's up to each individual female. But rest days are crucial for the recovery, injury prevention, and overall fitness improvement. So most runners will benefit from incorporating at least 1 full rest day per week, or more, depending on individual needs and training intensity. So rest days allow the body to repair and rebuild, and it also replenishes our glycogen stores and prevents burnout both physically and mentally. So some of the benefits that you'll find, as I said, from rest days are going to be things like injury prevention, because it allows the tissues in your muscles to relax and the tendons, and that lets them heal from the stress of running. The glycogen replenishment is really important because that actually is your primary energy source for when you're running and training. It also helps with reducing the fatigue that you have when you're running. So if you are getting those rests in, your running is going to be better and you're not going to be as fatigued when you are running. You'll also find you'll have an improved performance level happening there. So it can actually build your endurance and improve your overall performance in the long run. And it's really good for your mental well-being as well, not to actually force your body to do more than what you can.
Now this next one is an interesting one because sometimes it can get people off guard. Should women train differently to men? So do women need to follow a specific women's marathon training program? Because I think sometimes women may think that they have to train the same way as men do.
Yeah, look, there's obviously differences between men and women, but women don't necessarily need to train radically different to men. They should just train with a good understanding of their own physiological needs and goals. So things like these are going to apply to both male and female, but basic training for things like strength training, as we just talked about, cardiovascular exercise, and also some nutrition. They are just going to be the same for males and females. Muscle and joint mechanics are the same. A squat works the same muscles in a female as what it does in a male. So you're doing the same there. But general training programs are effective for both sexes. So a well-designed program is beneficial for both sexes. I guess obviously for females, you don't want to probably be lifting the same amount of weight as if you're a 50-kilo female and your partner's a 100-kilo male. Obviously, those weights are going to change. But you've just got to take into some considerations, I guess, being a female, and that's your hormonal fluctuations. You're obviously going to have hormonal changes throughout your menstrual cycle and throughout menopause. So just be aware of those sort of things that can affect your energy and your recovery as well. So listen to your body and adjust it to accommodate those things. Muscle fiber type is a little bit different as well in females. So females tend to have a higher proportion of slow twitch muscle fibers, and they're more resistant to fatigue. And as I said before, aesthetic goals. So that's your weights. You don't want to, some females may want to look really big and bulky, and other females don't, same as males. So those sort of things are going to come into effect. And everybody has an individual need. So just tailor it to your own specific goals and needs, I guess. Yep.
Now, this is another interesting one because sometimes this next question impacts me. Sorry. Is it normal to feel tired during your period when running?
Yeah, actually, that's very common to feel more tired during the period, especially just before it begins, because that's your hormonal fluctuations happening. So you've got your hormonal fluctuations, things like estrogen and progesterone. Your estrogen levels tend to drop as your period approaches, and your progesterone levels rise. This can cause you to feel tired, sluggish, and have low energy. Serotonin. The decline in estrogen can also cause a decrease in serotonin, and that's a hormone that affects your mood and your energy levels. Some of your other potential factors are things like heavy menstrual periods. So if you have a heavy period, you can be more tired due to more blood loss, iron deficiency. Heavy periods can lead to iron deficiency, which can cause fatigue. You can get PMS symptoms, cramps, mood swings. Nobody wants to be running when you're all crampy and moody. And you can get really stressed and get some lack of sleep there as well. So it definitely changes how you run. So you can manage that by doing things like making sure you get enough rest and sleep. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Try and exercise even if you are tired, even if it's a walk, anything like that. It's better than not doing anything. So even if you're not going to run, at least try and get out for a walk or get some fresh air. Eat really healthily and try and get rid of your anti-inflammatory your inflammatory foods, and eat more of those anti-inflammatory foods. And maintain your stress when you're on your period. And if you do have any concerns, make sure you talk to your doctor. So if you think it's period fatigue, if it's from like either being anemic, heavy bleeding, if you're getting dizziness, lightheadedness, chest pain, anything like that, make sure you see your doctor, because those are not normal when you've got your period, when you're exercising.
Awesome. Now this next one, I think there's a big misconception. Is there a difference between men's and women's running shoes? I know for me personally, sometimes I do wear men's running shoes because I find them to be wider in the toe box and wider generally, and I find that they suit me better. But these days, some brands in certain models are actually making them as actually making shoes as a unisex type model.
Yes.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right there, Lucia. A lot of brands are making them unisex now. However, there is a distinct difference between male and female shoes, and we do have different makeup in that way with our feet. So women's shoes are narrower and generally and have more arch support, and men's shoes tend to be wider with more overall support. So here's a bit of a breakdown that I can find, and that's the width. Men's shoes are generally have a D width as their general go-to width, whereas females are B width. I will wear men's shoes. I just go down one size, and
No, isn't it up?
no. So
Sorry, down.
in
Sorry.
my female ones, I would be like a 10D,
Yep.
and in males, I would be like a 9B.
Yep.
So I go for the narrow men's in a size smaller. Does that make sense? So, and in the females, I actually go the wider shoes, but a size bigger. So these are things that you have to learn, and whether or not it works for your feet. So just because it works for me does not mean it's going to work for you if you change to male shoes. But women's shoes are designed with narrower heels to accommodate our narrower heel shape, and that prevents the heel slippage. Midfoot in the arch support, we actually have more support around the midfoot or arch because we have higher arches than what men do typically. As I said before, the toe box is wider and the females are narrower. So these are all things that you've got to work out whether or not it's going to work for you as well. And the cushioning in female shoes, we usually have a higher stack height and softer cushioning to accommodate a different foot strike pattern to what a man does. And that's because we've got wider hips and take different stride patterns to what a male does. So mostly designed on what our pelvis does. And boys have got different, or men have got different colorways than what females have. So really that is your main, that is your main thing that I can pick out from that one. But yeah, some of them are gender neutral. So definitely get fitted by a professional professional shoe person is what I'd recommend.
Now,
So basically, though, what you're saying, Tara, is there's no difference in the composition of the materials in the shoe, and the shoes are the same as far as the materials used and how they're configured. It's just the way the sole sits inside of the shoe and whether it's a narrower fit or a wider fit. Is that
That's
right?
exactly it. Yep, absolutely. So sometimes, as I said, the females may have a higher stack, but apart from that, really, it's pretty much all the same. Yep.
Because it's not something I would consider. I know for you do switch between men's and women's shoes, and it'll be dependent on what's available and the cheapest sales and things like that. But I've never thought from a male perspective to go into a female shoe, and it probably wouldn't work that way because of
They don't make shoes that big.
Yeah. But I guess if you've got a smaller foot as a male, you could possibly go down into a female shoe. It would just be a bigger shoe, a larger size shoe. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
And
pretty colours.
Exactly. On a side note, so the shoes I wore in Boston, I had Nike Vapo Fly 3s. They were men's sizes, and for me it worked because it got me a PB, but it may not necessarily work for everyone. So it's definitely trial and error and finding out what works best for your feet. Now, Tara, on the next question, I can't give you any input to this at all. Is it safe to run during pregnancy?
Oh, look, it's been a long time since I was pregnant, since my youngest is 19, nearly 20.
Thank God. Yeah.
Yeah, there won't be any more coming along, that's for sure. But it is recommended, and this is coming from, things haven't really changed a lot from when I was actually pregnant to the research that I've done on it since. So it's recommended that pregnant women exercise. So not necessarily run, but exercise for 150 minutes to moderate intensity a week. So if you're a runner prior to falling pregnant, it is safe to run while you are pregnant. It is definitely a normal thing to do. It's healthy, it's safe, and there's no problems at all with it, according to doctors. Now, I know personally, I was actually doing hill sprints when I was 38 weeks pregnant. And that was because I'd always done hill sprints, and I just kept doing them up until 38 weeks. And then my belly got in the way and I couldn't do it anymore. But there are some conditions that make it unsafe to exercise during pregnancy. And so please talk to your doctor, your gynecologist, your obstetrician, whoever you're seeing, your nurse, before you exercise. Do not take this as all to go. But you've got things like spotting, bleeding, preeclampsia, severe anemia. You've got heart and lung diseases, placenta problems. If you're having multiples, it's probably not a good idea to be running and putting that pressure on your bowel, bladder, uterus, and all of that, especially later on. And those at a risk of preterm labour. So the doctors would not recommend you running in those things. The benefits, though, of exercising during pregnancy, whether or not that's running or just exercising, you probably will gain less weight throughout your entire pregnancy. It is proven that you have an easier labour. So pregnant women who exercise tend to have an easier and faster labour, as well as a quicker recovery. And I can actually attest to that. I was lucky enough to have a 3-hour labour with my first and an hour and a quarter with my second. I was up walking around with both of them straight away afterwards. So I could do everything that I could prior to. That doesn't mean that it was because of the running, but I can attest to the fact that because I was very fit and active throughout my pregnancies, my doctors said that as well to me. You've also got a lower risk of any complications. So things like preeclampsia and needing a cesarean section as an emergency can be decreased from exercising, and gestational diabetes can also be less common in those that exercise. So you've also got your mental well-being. During exercise, obviously your hormonal changes happen so drastically that it actually helps level out your hormones so that you're nice and happy as well, because as we all know, we like to exercise and it makes you happy. And there is also a proven study that the baby's brain development is better off for those that come from mothers that exercise. So researchers have found that exercise during pregnancy can boost the baby's brain development. And the study of these newborns' brain activity found that the mothers who exercise regularly during pregnancy have brains that developed more rapidly than those with sedentary mothers. So definitely recommend. Good for you and for your baby.
Now, this one is another curly one, which I think sometimes people are a bit unsure. How do you get back into running post-pregnancy?
Yeah. Yep. So this one you should do definitely based on your doctor's guidelines. It depends entirely if you've had a cesarean section, natural birth, stitches, tearing. There's so many things that can factor into this, going back to running. Most doctors, if you've had a normal birth with no complications, they will tell you around about 12 weeks. And I know that seems like a long time. However, your body has just been through some major changes. So the reason why they say this is that gives your bladder and your bowel and your stomach muscles time to heal and to repair themselves and go back to the shape that they should be before you put that undue stress on them from running again. So by running too soon, you can actually cause things like all your bowel problems, all your bladder problems. You can actually have tearing within your stomach lining, within your muscles in your stomach, and then they actually separate. So you need surgery then to actually change that, to fix that problem. You shouldn't start running again until your pelvic floor and your core strength is back to where it should be, is pretty much where that comes down to. You shouldn't have any pain. You should not be leaking anything, like when you sit up, cough, sneeze, anything like that. If you've got any heaviness in your pelvis, definitely do not run. And you should be able to do some basic functions like walking up and down stairs, a single leg balance, single leg squats, jogging on the spot without any problems before you actually start resuming back to running. But definitely start your walking as soon as you can, as soon as you feel you're able to after giving birth. Running is a whole new world though.
And this next one, is there a right time to start running with a baby in a pram? Like should the baby be a certain age or what? And also can you run with all types of prams?
So that is a very good question, and I see this quite often at park runs and stuff, and it makes me shudder actually with some of these babies that are in prams. So babies need to be able to hold their head upright and have the neck muscles in their necks and have the ability to actually have some control over their head so they can move it before you start running with them. Now, you can actually cause some brain damage. You can cause shaken baby syndrome. You can cause neck damage. You can cause so many problems running with your baby in a pram before they can do that. So the general rule of thumb is around about 6 months that babies can sit up and hold their head up. So once your baby is able to sit up and hold its head up properly, absolutely go for your life. Run, but please make sure that you are looking at and are aware of what your baby is doing in that pram. If they are showing any signs of discomfort, if they're crying, if they're not comfortable being in there, start slow. Just build it up slowly. Don't go for a 20k run with them when they're 6 months old if that doesn't keep them comfortable. Some babies go very, very well with it. It's like being in a car. So I guess there is one of those things that you can look at with your prams, and a lot of prams now go from like a capsule that you put in your car straight to the pram, and they've got like all the head support and stuff like that. However, I would definitely be consulting with your pediatrician before you start running at any stage with a baby in the pram. It's a very risky thing to do.
Very, very good advice. Thank you, Tara. This next one, which I think is very prevalent, given as to what's happened in the last couple of years. What do I do if I feel unsafe mid-run?
Yeah, look, Lucia, you and I could talk about this
for hours.
All day, couldn't we? And I know that 95% of the female runners that I know have encountered these problems as well. So, number one, trust your instincts. If you feel unsafe during a run, prioritize your safety and trust your instincts. Immediately change your route or change where you're running. Turn back if you can. Try not to run by yourself in unlit areas. And I know that this is a really awful thing that we have to think about, but perhaps think about carrying a personal safety device. So like an alarm or something like that. I know I have one for when I run. It's very easy. It's on a key ring. It just goes in my hand. It sits in the palm of my hand, and I just pull it out of the key ring and it goes off. Like it's like a little grenade. Pull the pin and it goes off, and it is very loud. It's enough to alarm everybody, and it probably can be heard from ages away. So just be aware of your surroundings. Inform people of where you're going. So if you're going for a run, I highly recommend saying, oh, look, if I'm going for a run without Tim, I'm just going for a run. I'll be going past this person, this house, and this house. It'll take me around about 35 to 40 minutes. I should be back by then. Now, ideally, it would be great, and I know not everyone has these watches and ability to do so, but I've got an alarm on my watch so that if I trip and fall, or if it's inactive for a certain period of time, when I have got it as a run mechanism, it will actually alert Tim, and you can set up whoever you want as your emergency person, but it alerts them that there's something wrong. I also have an app on my phone called Life 360, and that shows where my phone is at all times. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I will be with the phone, because if something happens, they can ditch that, obviously, but my phone's usually tucked away into my pocket of my running pants. So the likelihood of something like that happening. But yeah, it's a very good idea just to inform people. Carry your self-defense things that you may need. And look, here in Australia, we don't need to carry guns or sprays or anything, but just a little alarm would be really good. If you are feeling unsafe where you are, get help. Don't worry. If you have to ring 000 and you feel unsafe, it is better to ring 000 and say, I don't feel comfortable here. And your gut instinct is 95% of the time right, as we all know. Don't confront that person, though. If you're feeling threatened, don't turn around and confront those people. Try and seek out help or other people, because most of the time, if those people are actually out there to hurt you, they may actually have like guns, knives, weapons. Don't put yourself into a situation where you're backed into a corner. And if you've got a chance to, I highly recommend practicing some self-defense moves. So even things like from getting grabbed from behind, what to do there. If somebody approaches you from the front, this doesn't have to be males, doesn't have to be females. It can be for dogs. It can be for anything. Does that make sense? But highly recommend looking at some self-defense classes and also animal protection classes. So those things are quite helpful. And avoid running in isolation, as I said before. I know that it's really nice to be able to go through the bush by yourself, because I love that. And that's one of my happy spots, is just going, taking off in the trails. But you do have to be aware that it's not always the safest thing to do. So be careful of that. And also the daylight, nighttime thing. Unfortunately, as a female, running at nighttime by yourself, it's probably not the best idea. And as much as I'd like to say that we can do it, we can't. And just keep your headphones where you can always hear what is going on around you. The amount of people I see with both AirPods on or over-the-ear headphones on, you say good morning to them, they don't even know that you've even said good morning to them, because the music or whatever they're listening to is too loud. Bone conduction headphones, listen with one ear in, but yeah, definitely be aware of your surroundings.
No, and just to further add to that one, I always carry my phone when I run, just for the just in case. So I highly recommend running with your phone, and also running if it's dark, running with a head torch, and so that way you are visible. And also, because I do very similar things. So for instance, when I ran in Melbourne over the weekend, I was running on my own, and I ran along main roads where I knew there was lights, even though I had my headphones in, but I didn't turn on my music until it was light, just so I was aware of my surroundings. And just to expand on what you said earlier, Tara, if you feel unsafe, if you see, like, for instance, a petrol station or a store that's open in front of you, go in there and ask them for help, and just say, I just need to stay in here. I'm just feeling unsafe. Don't be afraid to do that, because your safety is the most important thing when you're out there. One last question, Tara. How can I find other women to run with?
Now this is a good one, because we are very social creatures, us women. I know men are a little bit different. They tend to, well, not all men, but married men seem to sort of stick to their own little, place. Whereas as females, we're very social.
And we like it that way.
That's because you get nagged so much from us females during the day that you just want to be by yourself. No, it's as a runner, I love to be able to run with people. So you can use things like Strava. They have got local running groups, tracking your runs and stuff like that. So you can see where you've run and if other people have run there as well. And if you think that the people that you want to catch up with, definitely. Just be very cautious of, making sure it's a public spot. On Facebook. Now, Facebook is a myriad of places, has a myriad of running groups. So in my area, there's a Brizzy Running Women. We've got Running Mums Australia, which is a Australia-wide running group. So you can just put out a feel out. Hey guys, I'm looking for a running partner that's running in this place, or do you have a group that run in this area? You can also look up things on Instagram, like with the hashtags, hashtag running Shorncliffe or whatever it would be for Tim and I. Do you know what I mean? Not that we use hashtags, but those sort of things. If you're running in the same area, we see the same familiar faces every single week. And I have made some amazing friends from Shorncliffe running. So a big shout out to Diane, who is one of my really, really good friends. And I met her several years ago out at Sandgate or Shorncliffe. And she was wearing a New York Marathon t-shirt. So, of course, I got chatting to her. She's now one of my besties. Love her to death. So things like that are really important. Your local running store will have a run club normally. So here in Brisbane, we have a thing called In Training. They have a run club, but a lot of running stores that sell running specific clothes, and I'm sure you probably have the same down in Sydney, but most of those running stores actually organise running groups as well, and that's males and females, and they can do your running plans as well. Events and races is really a great place to meet people as well. You can meet up with some amazing people at your own local race. So we have one here in Brisbane called Jetty to Jetty, and the amount of people that you can see there at Jetty to Jetty, you can make some great friends there, and I'm sure same for you, Lucia. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're open to making friends and talking to people, you will make a good running community. Also, volunteering is a really good way to do it. So things like park run, going to park run, and volunteering at park run, you can make some amazing friends and running people to run with. The park run's great. It's an all-inclusive community, and 95% of park runners are very welcoming. There's very few of us that don't welcome new people. But just be open. Be open to invitations from friends who run, or they want to suggest a post-run coffee, because these are the networking things that you want to do. Tim and I have got an event after the Gold Coast Marathon, and there's a lot of people coming together for that from all different areas, because they want to all communicate with each other, and it's going to be great. It's that we've all got like-minded interests. So yeah, that's pretty much. Ask questions, be supportive, and just be considerate of your pace. If you're a 5-minute runner, just be aware that not everyone in your group is going to be able to run that pace. So if you want to run at a specific speed, just try and find those like-minded people or
Awesome.
like-paced people.
Awesome, Tara. Absolutely fantastic. Hopefully that's given our listeners a bit more of an insight into women's running. Now, it's the time of the week, which we know everyone gets excited for when I don't take it, where we get a tip from Tim. So, Tim, what's your tip this week?
I thought you said earlier on everyone listened out for the news of the week. Now they're listening out for my tips. Jeez.
Well, it's both. It's kind of hard to decide which one's more popular.
I thought it was only Lucia's tips that everyone listened in for, actually.
Possibly. Anyway, my tip this week is running is for everyone, and anyone can do it. And for the blokes out there who do run, maybe it's time to grab your partners and encourage them to do a bit of running and get into running with you. And by doing that, you may need to help them out a little bit, encourage them along the way, even slow down your own running to be with them. But I can tell you it's a lot more fun when you're running with somebody else, particularly somebody that you are caring for and are passionate about. So, yeah, it's definitely a time where you need to be supportive, be patient, be encouraging, learn to love running slower, but also, embracing finish lines, not finish times. And when you do that and you have that sort of attitude and you bring people in, it's a lot more rewarding. It's a lot more happier, and it's definitely a lot more rewarding. And I can tell you from my own perspective, running with Tara makes me a lot more happier than running by myself and pushing it out and focusing on super fast times. So that's my tip this week.
Very, very, very good tip. Thank you, Tim. Now, unfortunately, this episode is about to end, but just before we do that, Tony, what's on for next week?
Before I talk about what's on next week, great job, Tara. That was a massive effort going through all of that. So well done. And yeah, just good stuff. There were no heart problems with any of that as you were going through. So your endurance and your stamina is absolutely going well. Hey, next week we're going to have a little bit of fun, as we always try to do. We're going to be debunking some of those common myths that we have about training. So we'll answer things we've all heard from non-runners about why running could be bad for you. So is it bad for your knees? We'll answer that. Do you have to run fast to be a runner? Running is bad for your heart. Apparently you only have a limited amount of heartbeats in your life. Did you know that? One that we will have no chance of debunking, and that is, do you really need a pre-week? It is more and more, I'm hearing it on every other podcast. There's a podcast that I listen to, as most of our regulars would know, 40 Runs, and he's talking about his time leading up when his training block starts for Chicago. So I'm calling that pre-week. So 40 Runs is in his pre-weeks for the Chicago. And also the myth that you probably never hear really is the Boston Marathon Expo is the best expo ever. I think we've debunked that one continually, but we'll do it again next week, no doubt. So we'll answer all the things that you've heard and maybe just throw in a little bit of humor to deal with the people who ask these questions. In our mind, everyone is a runner. So anyone who runs, walks, runs, whatever we want to call it, they're all runners in our eyes. So as you know, we do have a little bit of experience. We are the only podcast with 4 6-star world major marathon medalists, and we know, a couple of things about running. So as usual, it's going to be a great episode, and I urge you not to miss it.
Excellent. Can't wait for next week, Tony. Thank you very much for that. Unfortunately, that's it for this week's show. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully between episode 87 and this one, we've helped many of our women runners out there feel better about themselves. On that note, it's time to wrap it up. Thanks, guys, for another great night. It's a highlight of my week doing the podcast. We love making this podcast for you, our listeners. Let us know what you think. Message us on Instagram, Facebook, or even email us at happyrunning@flyingrunner.com. If you've got any running tips, share them, or if there's any myths you want debunked, please let us know. Like, for instance, pre-week. Please send us your feedback. And you can also watch the episode on Spotify, YouTube, or listen on Apple, Amazon, and all other major platforms. Every step counts. Keep running, and we'll see you next time on the Flying Runner. Happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running.